Hey, Manny, what's up? Give it to me, brother.
I
How you
thought,
doing,
weren't
bro?
you?
How you doing? Everything good?
We're good.
You got,
Weren't you
yeah. Listen,
just?
is does the Cash Five come out today? Is that today? Is that
Didn't you? Were you just here? You just got a ticket before. Like, where are you getting all this money from, man?
Yo, listen, man. I heard about this guy, Jasson Dominguez, 16-year-old Yankees camp, supposed to be the next big thing, better than Mike Trout, better than Ken Griffey Jr., the next Babe Ruth is what I'm hearing. What do you think? What do you think about
Is
that?
is
You
this
think the
everything you
Yankees?
get?
You think the Yankees are gonna be in contention for the next decade with this guy?
Is this everything you're getting here? This is it.
Uh, that depends. Are the Platanos three for a dollar still?
Uh, the two for a dollar, bro.
These Platanos right here.
Yep.
All right. Do me a favor. Give me a pack of Vaquero menthol back
Hold on.
there.
Are you getting the plátanos or?
You said they're three for a dollar. You said they're three for a dollar here. What do you think about this guy, Jasson Dominguez, bro? Come on. Come on. I know you're into baseball. Give me some.
So wait, you're not gonna get the plátanos because they're two for a dollar, but you want a pack of Marlboros? Is that what you're saying?
I'm asking if you think I could pay for the stuff I'm asking for now, and I'll come back and drop you money for the Platanos later. If they're three for a dollar, are they still three for a dollar? Or is it two for a dollar? Can you? The sign's kind of misleading over here.
Luis, what's up?
Manny, how's everything? How's good? How's life?
You know, keep trekking along here, and we're gonna get some snow tomorrow. Word on the street is
Same.
today. If you're listening to this today, we're gonna get some snow. I'll tell you how much my application says we're gonna get, in case you're interested. Not sure if you are. All I know is that I'm sick of snow.
Same. And it was such a nice day yesterday. A lot of snow melted.
Oh yeah,
And then Mother Nature pretty much said, you know what? F you guys.
getting a solid 6 to 9, man. 6 to 9 tomorrow.
Here's some more ice dumping in your face.
I don't understand, man. Like, what is this like the world saying? Humanity, you're not taking this virus seriously, so we're gonna just dump a ton of snow on you so you can stay home, so you can't travel. Is that what's going on here?
Who knows, man? At this point, I think we're living in a simulation and they're just testing us, pushing our buttons. Like, don't be surprised if the 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 most vicious strain of COVID comes right around summertime, like right when everybody wants to go out and get their vacation on. It's like, hold up.
Well, people don't want.
Here's the
Yeah, people don't want to hear this, but what they're saying now about COVID is that there's a vaccine. There are vaccines, and it's going to be rolled out like aggressively pretty soon. But that there are strains, and if we don't, like, now more than ever, we need to really mask up and social distance and everything, because we don't want this thing to continue mutating. Because then the vaccine is already not effective, I think, against the South African strain or something like that. Like, it's not as effective against it. Um, so it's like, people, like, I get it. There's a light at the end of the tunnel here. Let's finish strong here. You know what I mean? Let's just
you know,
you know.
it's weird though, because this vaccine could be the reason why it's mutating, because once a virus or a bacteria has exposure to something that could kill it off, what it has a chance of mutating right then and there. I think that's like, I was reading up about this. It's like going to be a big problem. Like in 50 years, we've gotten so good at killing bacteria and curing viruses and diseases and stuff that all these things are now resistant to the medicine that we have. And, you know, less minor bacteria and viruses could be the reason why we start dying off in the future. But Manny, what I think what I'm upset about the most about all this is, no matter what happens, when we finally towards the end of this, it's going to be a lot of like, could this be the next COVID type of scare? You know, like I
All
feel
the
like we're never going to be the same again.
Well, you know what is gonna be the same again, Luis? I
Tell
don't
me.
even know if this makes any sense, but baseball today, you're listening
Spring
to this
training.
yesterday, was pitchers and catchers. And spring is in the air, kind of, as the snow falls here in Pennsylvania. But yeah, so baseball's back finally. And I don't know, that's just exciting. And there's a lot going on, and We're gonna have a lot to talk about. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited about baseball. That's what I'm trying to say here. My brain is all over the place, man.
I'm excited too, man. And do you think Garrett Cole will be on the mound opening day, facing these cheating allegations?
Oh my God, get out of here with this, please. Jesus Christ. Yes, and Garrett Cole will dominate this year. So there you go.
Okay. Noted.
All right. So here's a couple stories here. I think this might be a short one potentially, but Albert Pujols, man, last year of his contract, he doesn't know what he's gonna do moving forward. It sounds like maybe this is it for him. Where do you put Pujols all time in your mind?
Uh, in the era, again, like I feel like we talk about a lot of similar topics in this podcast. In the era that Pujols was at his peak, I think he's the best hitter coming out of that decade, 11 years, however many years he was on the top of his game.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't aged as good as some of the other all-time greats. Like it's mostly because of injuries. But for his era, I put Pujols like top 3, top 2, probably the number 1.
Yeah. I think that I agree. I agree with that. And I also agree it's funny because he has the distinction of, I think that all time, he's definitely a top 5 player all time. Like, I don't think there's a question that he's a top 5 player all time. At the same time, I think he'll be remembered for having the worst contract of all time because he was signed by the Los Angeles Angels in 2012, and he essentially gave them one good season. From there, it's a steady decline, like way down.
Yeah.
And that sucks for that organization, but it's Albert Pujols, and it plays into your belief system or your old belief system. I don't think you think of it this way, that he deserves that money because of what he did do prior to getting that contract. And who could have predicted that he was going to turn out to be, I don't want to call him a complete waste, but he's not the same guy at all anymore. But I think that cumulatively, if you look at his stats altogether, he's a top 5, arguably top 3 player of all time. This is a guy, you don't see this anymore. A guy who, let me see if I have this right. Yeah, he has more walks than strikeouts for his career. That doesn't happen in this day and age. This is a guy who was regularly in the 30s and 40s in home runs with 100 plus RBIs every year. A guy who has 1,000 plus OPS, multiple times in his career. This guy is incredible, an incredible player. And I hope he gets a proper send off this year. And I hope that he has a decent season to close it off. I would hate to see him, limp off into the sunset.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Albert Pujols, like he was putting up steroid numbers, never faced allegations for steroids. What I think is funny, we were talking to Manny yesterday. I don't know when you're planning on dropping that interview, but he said how they're breaking strikeout records every year, and it's because of the pitchers that are all armed with the nasty breaking ball, the plus 95 fastball, and everything. And it's gonna keep going this direction because pitchers have just gotten too good at pitching. But Albert Pujols, he still doesn't strike out a lot, and he's an aging talent. So he bridges the gap. He bridges he bridges the time from when there wasn't 99 mile per hour throwers on every team to where there currently is. And I know he hasn't played a full season since, it looks like he hasn't been never played 100 the full season, but let's say 2017 was his last full season. He only struck out 93 times. I think that's pretty interesting. It almost feels like there is something about the approach. There's still something to the approach that batters are using today, which is leading to more strikeouts. Rather than just that pitching has gotten like better.
And to your point, he still doesn't strike out as much as he used to. Well, he still doesn't strike out as much. He didn't ever strike out as much. But I think that the reason why his numbers are in decline is that he has another distinction about Albert Pujols, is that he has the all-time record in grounded into double plays. And I think what that tells me is that pitchers aren't afraid to throw to him to contact because he's slow and they can get him out at first. I wonder how many times he's hit a blooper to right or something and they've thrown him out in first base. I bet you he's been caught a lot that way and stuff and ground balls and stuff like that. He's not like Ichiro. Like the thing that made Ichiro special, and I think that Albert Pujols is leaps and bounds better than Ichiro. So don't take this as a comparison, apples to apples comparison. But the special thing about Ichiro was that he was super fast his entire career, and he had that swing that he was almost running to first already while he was going, and so he had a ton of singles. He was able to beat out throws a lot. Pujols can't do that. Pujols is an extra base hitter. If it's not an extra base, I doubt you're going to see Pujols at first base as much, unless it's a walk. You know what I mean?
And could it be?
Yeah.
Could it also be though? By going back to the interview last night, he said, Pujols looks like Pujols does put the ball in play. He's grounding out into double plays more than anyone ever has.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Pujols never adjusted to the launch angle, putting the ball in the air type of approach. And maybe that's why he also doesn't strike out as much. Who knows?
Hey man, you're going to make me look on Baseball Savant now.
You want to look at his launch angle?
I'm going to look at it.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at his launch angle, man.
You like looking at those numbers.
What do you think it's at? 6 to 12 maybe?
His launch angle, I'm going to say 8. I'm going to give it an 8. An 8er.
A solid 8?
Yeah.
Okay. It's pretty
low.
It's pretty girthy. Oh boy, I'm gonna get in trouble for that one. All right, Albert Pujols, launch angle, 11.9 for his career.
Well, can you look at,
but very consistent. Always around the same. Like there was rarely an adjustment. Like it's not like it's more now than it used to be. You know what I mean? It was 13. It was well, actually, that's not true. Last year was 16.4. That's the highest of his career.
Okay, so he is trying to.
But before that, it was pretty consistent, and I don't think that's that much of a change. Like it was 14.2, 11.7, 13.4, 14, 12.6. It's like hovering around that 13 number. You know what I mean?
That's a good launch angle. That's what people are aiming for these days, right?
Yeah. Maybe it's just his power, his exit velocity. Yeah. Let's have a look here. It went from 90 to 88.6. He's hovering around the 88s toward the latter part of his career.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I hate to see players limp off, into the sunset, but he's just, unfortunately, he's not this kind of player like Ichiro where he could run out a single or whatever. He's going to be the type of hitter that it's going to be a home run, it's going to be a double, or it's going to be an out, essentially. So he had last season, for example, he had 34 hits in all, 8 doubles, 6 homers. So that's 14. So only 20 of those were singles. But yeah, Hall of Famer, first ballot for sure. If when it comes his time to get into the Hall of Fame, this is a prime example of a guy that should get 100% of the vote.
Yeah, I agree.
And I can't see why anybody would not vote for this guy.
His numbers are still incredible.
Yeah, regardless. And just character-wise, he's always been a high character guy. So this is going to be a good litmus test. Is that the word? For the Hall of Fame coming up in 6 years if he retires.
I don't think he's getting 100% of the votes, by the way.
Did Jeter get 60, 90, 100, no. Or he by one? Right?
One guy didn't vote for him, and Yankee fans cried about it. Michael K still mentions it till this day. I mean,
because he should be 100%. But you know what? So should Griffey. You know what? In my opinion, are we gonna get into this conversation, man?
Nah, we don't have to get into. No, we don't have to get into. But we both agree that if you're a Hall of Famer, you're a Hall of Famer. Who cares about the percent? Yeah,
Griffey should have been 100%. I don't know why he's not 100%. Why not? All right. Next topic. I don't know. All right. Ohtani has been cleared to pitch in 2021. Let me look at this link real quick. So this is what Joe Madden said. Joe Madden says, I'm hearing full go. The reports have been getting are fabulous. If we get Shohei in the right direction, going to be a pretty good offseason acquisition right there. I'm excited to watch this. So he's a full go, ready to pitch, ready to hit. What do you see coming out of Shohei Ohtani? Do you think this is going to be his year?
I don't know. I'll tell you this. I'm off the Ohtani train. I don't care anymore.
Okay.
I feel like it's nice seeing Ohtani do those things, but I was way more excited when he came into the league, and now it's like I almost don't care so much that he could do both.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of like, show me first, and then I'll start looking at it like this amazing thing. He's amazing regardless. I mean, he could pitch at the major league level, and he does hit bombs. So he is literally like the modern day Babe Ruth. I'll give you that. But I'm just like not about being like so into it anymore for some reason. I feel like he's missed a good amount of time. So when he starts putting it all together, then I will be like, wow, this is like I've never seen before.
Who do you like more, Ohtani the batter or Ohtani the pitcher?
So far, Ohtani the batter.
Yeah, I think
and I feel
agree.
like I feel like every time they mention his like batting, his BP prior to games, he's like putting these balls like in spots where guys have never put him before, and he plays on the same team as Mike Trout. So it's like I would say Ohtani the batter.
So this is what I think that I like the experiment. I think it's cool to see a guy because he is talented on both ends. When he pitched in 2018, he started in 10 games and had a 3.31 ERA. Struck out 63 batters in 51 and 2/3 innings. He also hit decently. He hit for a 925 OPS, 22 home runs, 61 RBIs, and 367 plate appearances. So clearly he's talented on both ends. Won the Rookie of the Year that year. But I think that when you're a two-way player in this day and age, unless you're in the National League, I think you're going to be wasted for a day at least in between there. And that's not even including rest days because they're going to throw. It's not like they're going to let this guy start on Monday and then play on the field the other days. Like they're going to want to give him rest days and stuff. So you're wasting this guy on some level. And I think that he's shown to be a better hitter than he is a pitcher. So I think I agree with you. But at the same time, he's with a team in the Angels where they need pitching. So they almost need this guy to be on the mound.
And you know how hard it is for a major leaguer to try to be consistent batting, and then you're only hitting like 3 days out of the week or something, and then you got to pitch, and then you know how hard it is to get like into your like mentality to be a pitcher. So I don't know. Maybe the game has gotten so advanced that there is no room for a two-way player like that. He pretty much has to outperform what we're expecting for him to be there.
Yeah. So I think he should have probably been in a National League team because then you're giving him are rest days. You're not going to waste any days at all. Like if he was on the Mets, for example, he could pitch. He could be the number 3 starter, and he could hit that day too. And maybe you give him the next day off so he could rest his arm or whatever. But he's going to play every four out of every 5 games, essentially. That's what I would do. But he's in the American League, so whatever. Angels, your problem. Next thing, and then we'll finish it off with this. David Ortiz doesn't like the direction baseball's heading in. Here's a quote that he told Peter Abraham of the Boston Globe. To me, it's messed up. The game has changed a lot. Coaches only want kids to hit home runs, and that's all they practice because they want to get paid. We used to want to develop great hitters. Now it's all strikeouts with some home runs, and it's straight up effing boring. If you could bet in Vegas that the next hitter was going to strike out, you'd take it every time. It's not good for the game, Ortiz said. If there's a runner at first, you want to use that hole to hit the ball to right field. Then the runner has the opportunity to go to third and can score or on an out or even a wild pitch. That's how I was taught to play. We used to be criticized for taking big swings in certain situations. Now that's all they want every time. It's hard to watch for me. So at first, when I read the comments, I was almost like, what is Ortiz talking about? Like, there's nobody who there wasn't a single player in baseball that swung as hard as David Ortiz. And then I pulled up his stat sheet on Baseball Reference, and he said, "Hold my beer, son. You don't know what the hell you're talking about." Do you like this guy?
So what did you wait?
Ortiz.
What did you end up seeing on Baseball Reference? Like what?
So what surprised me was that I thought Ortiz was I never thought that Ortiz was a strikeout guy. Like I know that A-Rod struck out 100 times, 100 maybe 125 times a year regularly.
Thank you for that A-Rod mention, by the way. Thanks.
Every episode, I got to do it for you, baby. So I thought Ortiz was in a similar boat. He's not. He struck out 100 or more times in a season, 6 times. That's in a 20-year career. Other than that, this guy was on average about an 80 strikeout guy a year. And he led the league in walks twice. So this guy wasn't a strikeout or nothing type hitter. He was a power hitter who could hit for average and got on base a lot. On top of that, I remember Ortiz getting shifted on, and I remember seeing him laying bunts to try to beat the shift. I think that's happened multiple times where a lot of guys don't do that. So he's absolutely right. I agree with him 100%. And I just want to apologize to Big Papi, and I will turn it over to you, my friend.
No, so again, it's like it's just weird how everything is happening at the same time, right? Like, can we ever really hone in on what's the real reason all these home runs are being hit right now? Is it that guys are trying to hit more home runs? Is it that pitchers are throwing harder and they're just waiting, sitting on that fastball? Is it that the balls are juiced? Is it that people are using birch bats or something? Like, it's just weird how everything's happening at the same time. And it's also weird that you had Charles Barkley a couple of weeks ago complain about how the current state of the NBA is all 3-pointers now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just weird how it's telling you, man, we're living in a simulation. That's a fact.
I think it's analytics, honestly, because I don't know if you remember last year or during the postseason, I was keeping track of the home runs each team would hit and what their win and loss record was. And if you hit the team that out homered their opponent won, I would say like 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
So I think that there are guys in people's ears saying, swing for the fences, and that's all you need to worry about. Like the more home runs we hit, the better chance we have of winning.
Yeah, but
and in the NBA, it's the same thing. If you're a good 3-point shooting team and you chuck up a ton of threes, you're likely to score more points than your opponent. You're probably going to win. I think that's all it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but this is what I was like getting at, like when we've touched on analytics before. Like if everybody is using analytics, then what's left? If you have team A super analytical, team B super analytical, they're both using analytics to dictate how they're going to end up playing this game. If everybody's using analytics, what's left? What wins the game?
Well, it's who can put together the best roster.
Yeah, who can do it better? So I feel like we're back to square one where the best roster.
Yeah, no,
it's almost like, and it's like, okay, I get that I get the teams that out homered the other team won, but if everybody's trying to hit home runs, isn't that what's going to be the case? For example, both teams are just doing their best to hit more home runs. Whoever hits more home runs obviously wins because they succeeded in doing the thing that both teams are doing. But if you take one team who's trying to hit only home runs and then you build a team of DJ LeMahieu's, do we know who's really going to win? Like everybody's trying to hit home runs. So obviously the team that hits more home runs, it should win is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I think that the only way to remedy it, I think the question then is, because I see what you're trying to say is the game more or less entertaining now than it was before the home run revolution came into being or whatever? And if most people believe that the game is not as fun now than it used to be, then you have to take measures to prevent these things from happening. Like you have to deaden the ball, then you have to ban the shift. Maybe you have to move the mound back so guys could put the ball and play more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know how deadening the ball helps because I don't want to reduce home runs. I want to reduce I think it's the strikeouts. I just want to and look, if Ortiz, who played in 2016 and put together that type of season, you saw the numbers, right? He put up 48 home runs, I think, and like less than 100 strikeouts. if Ortiz, who was an aging player, Pujols, an aging player, if these guys could limit the amount of strikeouts, then I think it's possible for Mike Trout to limit his strikeouts and Aaron Judge to limit. And again, Aaron Judge might just be this old school power hitter who is just there to hit home runs and strikes out a lot. And there's always going to be players like that. But the fact that everybody's striking out this much and hitting this many home runs, like I think certain guys need to change their approach. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I think
Yeah.
the strikeouts is the worst part of all this.
I guess what I don't understand is, and when we first started our podcast, one of our first interviews was Doug Latta. Do you remember that interview?
Yes.
And he was talking about how he taught his hitters. I believe he's Justin Turner's hitting coach. I can't remember who else, but that he would tell his hitters not to make adjustments to their swing, to stick with their swing no matter what. If it's a 1-0 count, if it's a 0-1 count, 0-2, 3-0, whatever, keep the same, keep the same swing and swing for the fences. And maybe that's not the right approach. You know what I mean? Because there's going to be instances where you're going to waste an out. Like I get it that a double play sucks. So maybe you don't make the adjustments when there's a runner on first because you want to prevent a double play. But if there's a runner on third, don't you want to make that adjustment? Or if there's a runner on second and a grounder up the gap is going to score that runner, don't you want that hitter to know how to hit it oppo to try to hit it through that gap? You know what I mean? And I feel like these hitters are just, I'm just swinging. This is my swing, and this is how I hit homers. So this is how I'm going to, no matter what happens, this is what I'm going to stick to. And I get it. Cumulatively, at the end of the day, at the end of the season, you'll score more runs, you'll win more games. But maybe you can, what if you're in a game 7 of a World Series and you need to squeak out a hit oppo through some gap or something?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Don't you want to be able to execute? You know what I mean?
That's the thing. Doug Latta's approach works. It's proven it works because guys are hitting more home runs and their launch angle has increased. It works, but you're right. Like there's still a place for a bunt against a shift. There's still a place for putting the ball in play with the runner in third or a runner in scoring position. There's still adjustments to be made when you're facing Jacob deGrom and it's your third at bat and you haven't touched him all night. Like I just feel like there has to be there. We'll never know. We never played at that level, but Pujols and Ortiz are proof. Like these guys were power hitters who limited their strikeouts. There has to be, if you can, when we interviewed Pam's son the other day, what was his name? And he said home runs wins games, and these guys are facing pitchers who are so good that they're focusing on hitting the home runs because that's what they have to. That's what they've had to resort to. I thought about that, and I'm like, if they can hit a home run, they can hit the ball in the ground, or they can make contact easier than it would to hit a home run. When you hit a home run, Griffey used to say that his home runs were just mistake line drives. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like if you can hit a home run, you can do everything underneath that almost. You can hit all things underneath. Maybe not a triple because that's like a down the line, perfect timing, everything. But you kind of get what I'm saying, right? Like,
And you mentioned the Maniac, the interview. He was talking about not giving up outs. Like you only have 27 in a game. So then why is it okay to give up an outs because you don't want to make an adjustment to your swing? Like, isn't a strikeout is an out at the end of the day? Why are you trying to don't give that out away? Like if you could, and again, I understand, like if there's a runner on first and you feel like you can't see that pitch, you're not, you know for sure you're probably not going to be able to hit it out of the field. And if you make contact, it might turn into a grounder. Nobody could predict what it's going to be, but maybe you do take that strikeout. Then I get it. You accumulate a strikeout that way. I don't want to cause a ground ball into a double play. But if I have a runner on third or runner on second, and I see I have a hole up the middle or whatever, I don't have to hit a home run in this instance. I'm going to try to put the bat on the ball and do the best that I can. Then make that adjustment. You know what I mean? I don't see anything wrong with that. And maybe it's just that it takes, I don't want to downplay what these guys are doing because the home runs that we're seeing are insane in today's game. But maybe the skill level in the game is not as high as it used to be, if you think about it. I think what DJ LeMahieu could do on a field, or what David Fletcher could do with a bat, I think in some cases is harder than what Aaron Judge could do. Because I think what Aaron Judge is doing, I think Aaron Judge is elite, by the way, but I think what Aaron Judge does is that he could hit the ball harder than anybody else.
Same, yeah. It speaks for
But
itself.
right, but what DJ LeMahieu could do is place the ball basically where he wants on the field.
Yeah.
And so Judge doesn't get shifted on because he hits it so hard. It's gonna go right through the shift. But neither does DJ LeMahieu, because you're gonna shift me this way, I'm gonna hit it the other way. So
And
doesn't that take more skill? Isn't that more? You know what I mean?
I just think that we're never gonna pinpoint where things changed, because it's like with the NBA, right? Steph Curry changed basketball as we know it today because he could hit 3-pointers at a rate and pop off a 3-pointer, like shoot a 3-pointer quick, and he was able to create space, and he changed the game. Now everybody shoots threes, everybody chucks up threes. It was probably creeping up towards that right before he joined the league or as he joined the league. So could he be the sole reason why everybody's shooting threes now? I don't know. But then is it that people are training to hit more threes, or is it just that the modern day NBA player is better at shooting threes?
I think they're training for it.
Yeah, they're training. So same thing in baseball, right? They're training to hit more home runs. So for all we know, there is a DJ LeMahieu out there, but he's currently on the track to be a 40 home run hitter instead of 330, singles, doubles type of guy. I don't know. We're never.
And I think it's going to get to a point in baseball, if we continue down this track, and maybe this is something we could talk about in more depth another time, but where if everybody's coming into the game with this mindset, then you're not going to have, then the strategy eventually is going to have to change, because it's going to turn out that there's nobody on base. There's just going to be a bunch of solo home runs in a game. Like a home run derby. Who hits the most home runs? That team wins. And that's essentially what's happening now. But you can't, your strategy of power hitting is not as effective unless you have a DJ LeMahieu on your team, or a David Fletcher on your team, because those guys get on before you. They're on base. They're ready to score their runs. You know what I'm saying?
It's also
so I don't know.
How often are you watching a game and the pitcher's just dominating? Like you need a guy that's like the spark plug that's gonna get on base and get something going, like something. It has to. You can't. How many times does maybe you're getting dominated by a pitcher and it's 2 outs and you draw a walk or a single or something, but then it ends up that the next guy strikes out. It just like kills the rally right there. And again, it's very possible he would have grounded out anyways, but it just needs to be a balance. We're all going to end up back to how it used to be. Some power hitters, some contact hitters, some fast guys, I don't know.
I think that's what's going to happen too. I agree. All right. The last thing before we move on is the New York. Do you want to talk about, so we did a little skit to start the show today. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Let's just mention it real quick.
So the New York Post, I don't know who wrote this piece. I'm going to have to open it up. Let's give them credit. So Justin Tash writes an article with a headline. And by the way, in papers like the New York Post, the Daily News newspapers, the writers aren't the ones that write the headline. So I don't know if that's the case on digital, like the New York Post on digital. But the headline is Yankees Jasson Dominguez more advanced than Mike Trout at the same age. And I just need to ask people to stop already with this, please. Jasson Dominguez is 18 years old right now. I'm going to search Mike Trout real quick. Mike Trout was... Okay, he was 17 when he was in Rookie A. He hit 352 with a 905 OPS. At 18 years old, he was all around the minors. He was in A, high A, and high A. Okay, in all three, he hit over 300 and around a 900 OPS. Elite at 18 years old. I'm gonna look up Jasson Dominguez real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got no stats here. Nothing. We don't know what he's capable of yet. So stop, please. And we know what Mike Trout has done through 10, 11, 12 years of his career. He's on track to be the greatest of all time. I hope that Jasson Dominguez could do that. I hope so, because it'll be entertaining baseball for the next 20 years or so. But we don't know that yet. You're putting so much pressure on this kid and so much hype around this that if he comes up and he sucks, you could potentially destroy his life. And the little Yankee fan inside of me from when I was a little kid will start to cry hysterically. And you don't want to see that on TV, on camera.
I just want to say Mike Trout was drafted 25th in his draft class. Mm-hmm. So any phenom who's in the top 100 prospects at any year is technically more developed than Mike Trout at his age. So it's a bunch of nonsense. And I didn't read the article, but anybody could have said that. Anybody watching Jasson Dominguez's batting BP could have been like, this guy's going to be better than Mike Trout. Holy shit. Holy ish.
Holy malarkey.
Whoa.
By the way, pre-2020 Baseball America, he's the number 38 prospect in all of baseball. For Major League Baseball, number 54. For Baseball Prospectus, number 46. Here's what I'm trying to say here. If this guy is more advanced than Mike Trout, then I want to know, where do you rank the 37 guys that are ranked in front of him on Baseball America? Who are they? Babe Ruth? Are they Barry Bonds?
I'm telling you, this is one of those situations where that guy who wrote the article either spoke to someone or was at the batting practice, saw Jasson Dominguez hit a 500-foot home run, and said to himself, this guy could potentially be the next Mike Trout. But it's a bunch of nonsense because potentially any one of those prospects could be the next Mike Trout. It's just that he is it's just that when you play for New York, guys, for all you guys out there who are New York fans and you guys don't listen to sports in New York, when you play for New York, you're on a list of, you'll always be in the Hall of Fame conversation. You'll always be in the A list of baseball players conversation. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm trying to just Aaron Judge, look at how they treat Aaron Judge. I like Aaron Judge, but Jesus, man, this guy is barely an elite player, and every year he's in the conversation for, could this be the MVP, his MVP season? I'm tired of it. I'm just sick.
You know what? I'm actually going to agree with you here, man. I think it is a New York bias type thing for sure.
When
if Jasson Dominguez was a prospect in the Kansas City Royals system, we wouldn't even know who he was until he showed up in the bigs one day.
Carmelo Anthony wouldn't be in the debate of whoa, this guy, he was a beast when he played, but because he played for the Knicks, I mean, God, man.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you here because
he was good for the Knicks.
Knicks fans hated him, and he was a good Knick. He was a good player.
He was a good Knick, but that's what I'm saying. When you play for New York, now he's not just a great NBA player. He's got to put this guy in the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Famer.
No, he is a Hall of Famer, man.
I don't know, man. I don't know anymore.
All right, whatever. Okay, we have Antonio Ortiz coming up, a YouTuber, the guy who does all the rebuilds. His channel is TheAntOrtiz, so stick around to check that out. Follow me at Manigo3. Follow Luis at Hovamojo on Twitter. Peace. We were just talking about how
sports are fixed.
There you go. In short, there it is. Sports are fixed.
Okay.
You don't have to get into the details. Have you ever experienced a sports are fixed moment in your lifetime? Where you thought to yourself, wow.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I watched a lot of the Premier League. So soccer, and I feel like there's just got to be something. Or you see Italian soccer, you hear a lot about how everything there is just fixed from day one. They already know the outcome. So yeah, I see I'll see something and be like, man, how does that happen? And that's just not something that's already set up, and they already know the outcome for that.
Yeah, we don't even watch soccer, so imagine all the stuff we're missing out on.
So yeah,
we're talking about. I mean, with baseball, today a story came out that they're going to deaden the balls because they were.
I did see that,
and I'm just why is it that in baseball these stories come out, but you never hear about that in football or in basketball, or I don't know if you hear about that in soccer, but it's maybe this is just Rob Manfred's way of keeping baseball on the front page. Let's just get people talking about this. I mean, some controversy. Let's talk about it. But I think it's horrible PR, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel it's always negative stuff where it's we got to change this or we got to change that, rather than it's oh, this is what the players were doing or this milestone was hit. It's always oh, the pitchers are using this kind of substance, or, like you said, the balls are now being deadened, or, there's cameras out in center watching something. So yeah. I can definitely. It just doesn't seem like it's always good stuff, or there's always a rule change that has to be talked about.
Right.
So,
and there's this constant battle between the older generation and the younger generation, and I'm always talking about how I'm not trying to kill off my grandparent. Well, they are dead already, but this just got dark. But I'm not trying to kill off an older generation, but baseball should be focusing on the younger generation, on Gen Z. I think that's who's coming up right now, and younger millennials, and trying to get them attracted to the game, because they're gonna stick around for years and years and years. Whereas their loyal fans can remain loyal, but you don't have to be so married to them. Like, there's ways you can evolve the game to keep them involved while at the same time bringing in a younger audience.
Yeah, I think the big thing that like MLB is like now starting to be better at is like social media. Yeah. I feel like that was like the area that they just really weren't honing in on. You look at like MLB or not NBA, NFL, like their players are like all there. And they're like really active on social media. They're really active in just putting their face out there. And you know, you look at like the best player in baseball right now, Mike Trout, and you know, there's nothing against him. Like, he's kind of an introvert, and that's perfectly fine. But like, I feel like unless you're a baseball fan, you don't know who Mike Trout is. And it's crazy because Mike Trout's like one of the best baseball players we've seen for years. And then, you know, but you could talk about people know LeBron, Steph Curry, who, you know, just keep going down the list. And it's just because I feel like the sport does a lot better job of marketing those players. And I feel like MLB is now getting better at it. You know, with Tatis, you have Acuna, those players who also bring more energy. But it's just, I feel like that's kind of the big thing. And it's just, especially because like the younger generations are all about the internet, you know, YouTube, Twitter, whatever it is. It's just kind of how like I think the marketing has to be targeted at now, rather than kind of how it was where you watch the game and that's how you got to know the players.
Even Kawhi Leonard, who's like the introvert of the NBA, is a meme like every month.
Yeah,
he's like he's getting
his
face is plastered on the internet because like they caught him laughing.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Rep or something.
I feel like with Trout, you see him on the field and then like you have nothing else.
Yeah,
and it's just kind of crazy like that.
And it's funny because whoever runs MLB's Instagram account is they're pretty up to date with the internet lingo. Like they speak the language to get people to be more into it. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, Manny. Like when you see a post from MLB, it's kind of funny. It's like loose.
I think it's more teams. Like the Tampa Bay Rays account is really good with social media if you follow them. And I forget who was what other team most recently. I was like, wow, they're actually upping their social media game. But I think they're starting to take it to another level for sure. And I think that it's super important. And to your point, Antonio, about social media, how they lag behind. A few years ago, Luis, I call him like 7 different names. So by the way, I'm Manny, that's Luis, and we have Antonio. Antonio, I'm recording now. I want to let you know just in case.
Sounds good.
So a couple of years ago on our previous podcast, welcome to the show, we were talking about social media followings, like you said, and we compared 2 players. I can't remember their names, CT, so remind me if you remember. But we compared like a C level, maybe B level NBA player and how many followers he had versus an MLB player that's like top level.
It was like Tristan Thompson versus like probably Mike Trout himself.
It was probably Mike Trout or something. Yeah. And it was unbelievable. The difference in followers is astronomical.
He's actually a bad example because he probably has a lot of following from the Kardashians.
I was gonna say Tristan Thompson. Yeah, no, it was that. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah,
it was somebody else. I remember.
It was probably like Blake Griffin, which he is an A-lister in the NBA. But it was someone that wasn't comparable to this MLB level player.
CJ McCollum.
All right, yeah.
And this is actually a really good segue because one of the best ways to attract a younger audience is gaming, and your channel, TheAntOrtiz, am I getting that right?
Yeah.
On YouTube, you've gained a ton of subscribers. You have 30,000 plus subscribers on YouTube, and I think this is another great way to attract a younger audience to baseball. So I wanted to explore this world a little bit more because, as our audience knows, I haven't played MLB The Show since David Ortiz was on the cover. Which was
Yeah.
However, my co-host here, Luis, my cousin, my brother from another mother, he games still.
Mhm.
He has a channel, Hova Mojo. So check that out. But what tell us about your channel and what kind of inspired you to create the type of content that you create?
Yeah, so like my whole channel right now is built off of like MLB The Show and like baseball. And so when I initially started doing YouTube, I was in college, and like I'm 28 now, so that's what, 5-6 years ago. It was like my sophomore year, and I had some friends that were originally doing FIFA content. And so soccer, which is like my favorite sport. And I was like, you know what, let me try it out. And I had a really bad time. Like I'm just really bad with time management. So there would be days where I'm like, let me just focus on YouTube. And then there'd be other days where I'd be like, let me focus on school. And that's just not a good way to handle it. And so then I stepped away from YouTube. And when I graduated, I was still kind of in touch with those friends. And I met some other people that were doing like MLB content, talking about real life baseball, but also MLB The Show content. And I'm still really good friends with them now. And they were like, why don't you try it again now that, you know, you're finished with school, you have some more time and everything like that. So I said, okay, let me sit down. Let me do it again. Let me see what I could, you know, kind of build up, start from the ground up. And I was like, you know what? I really like video games. I really like MLB The Show. Let me hop into it. And it was actually another way for me to really find my like love for baseball, because I kind of fell out with the sport. I'm a Cubs fan, but like I kind of went through that time where the Cubs were just absolute trash, you know, the early 2000s, mid 2000s. And so I was like, well, let me get back into baseball again. And that was really how I really started to get back into baseball again. I started playing the game. I started paying attention more to the Cubs, what was going on around the league. And then, you know, while I kept uploading, kept up to date with other things. And then it just kind of became a passion of mine. And I was able to step away from teaching, which is what I was doing while I was still uploading. And now I can do this full time, which was kind of cool. It allows me to stay home. And it's pretty good so far. So, yeah.
That's interesting because I'm sorry, Luis, when I was gaming, well, I shouldn't say gaming because I don't know if you, whatever. Anyway, when I played video games, one of the main ways I could keep up with the game was through video games. Like a lot of the connections I made with players on the field was because I had recognized the name through a video game. So yeah, sorry, Luis. I just wanted to make that quick point. You had something to say?
No, I almost lost my train of thought. So you said like you were able to step away from teaching. So like you must put a lot of time into these videos. Like how much would you say is like an average amount of time spent? Maybe not just playing the game, but then also like getting the video onto YouTube.
Yeah. So like editing, making the thumbnail, everything. So when I first started, I was putting in like a lot more time just because I wasn't comfortable in front of the camera. I'd stumble a lot. I'd make weird eye contact, or I wouldn't make eye contact. And so it used to take, you know, like close to like a full work day for me to like sit down, record, get it done, edit it, and then just get it up to YouTube. So it'd be like 8 hours. Now it's a lot quicker process. It's probably like down to like 5. Sometimes they're quicker. It just really depends on how long the video is, how quickly I can sit down, just knock it out and feel comfortable with what I'm actually going to put up online. And then especially since when I first started, I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know what programs. Learning Photoshop was crazy. So like this has been something that I've just picked up on the fly. I'm watching YouTube videos on how to make YouTube videos and learn Photoshop and all these different processes, like how to hook up my camera to my PC to make sure it doesn't look like it's, you know, from the 1990s. So, and all these other things. So it's been a huge learning process, but it's been a lot of fun. It keeps me on my toes. It makes me constantly having to keep up with things. So it's been a lot of fun. Yeah. So right now I'd probably say like 5 hours, but when I first started, it was like a normal work day. Yeah.
And how many videos you upload a week, would you say?
A week? Like once like baseball season's going, I'm doing every day, sometimes twice a day. But right now, maybe 3-4 a week, just because like we're getting to the point where there's a new season coming. Obviously, MLB The Show is about to drop their next installment in April. So it's kind of like the dead period right now, especially since the off season's kind of quiet too, outside of the Bauer signing and things like that. So unless something big happens in MLB, it's just been kind of quiet. So it's just really dependent on if I really want to put something out on the day.
Yeah. A lot of your videos revolve around rebuilding teams.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What goes into, like, what is it that sparks an idea for you? Like, for example, like your latest video uploaded a day ago, the Texas Rangers speed rebuild, MLB The Show 20. You got 7,500 views for that one.
Yeah.
What inspired that one, for example? Like what sparked the idea for that?
So for that one, well, like the Texas Rangers, obviously they're not making any big moves this offseason. So I still wanted to kind of see how I could change the team to get them as good as I possibly can. But I didn't really want to make like a full length video that I normally do, because most of the videos that I make are 30 plus minutes, where I'm going through multiple seasons trying to change this team from where they are now to like a World Series winner or contender. So this one was just how quickly can I change this team to being a World Series contender, rather than just focusing on like my normal length videos. So that was just like a team that I knew really hadn't had a big off season, but I still wanted to do a video on them. So that's why I kind of did a shorter, quicker video compared to like a team like the Dodgers or, the Yankees, who have, gone out and brought back DJ LeMahieu, or any of the other like big moves that we've had recently, like Arenado to the Cardinals.
Right. So I guess what I mean is, like, why did you like, and I don't want to just focus on that Rangers video, because you touch on every team. I guess that was the latest one, but was there a reason why you decided, let me do a speed rebuild on the Rangers? Like, are you trying to keep up with current events and then building a video around it?
Yeah. So most of my videos are pretty topical, especially in the off season. Like if a move happens, I know they're in the news. I know they're going to be talked about. I know they're going to be searched. So that's why I want to get that video out as soon as possible. So like the Rangers, they just made that trade with Elvis Andrus and Chris Davis. So I was like, well, they're going to be somewhat relevant. So let me make a video on them. Same thing with Arenado. Same thing with Bauer. But like at the beginning of the year, I'm just trying to get out the teams as soon as I can. I don't really have an order. And then it's really whatever videos I feel like would be topical at the time. So if a trade does happen, that's normally the video I'll try to do, or if a move or a signing happens. But I guess I would say it's kind of topical. But if you're looking for an answer on like how I came up with like these types of videos, it was just something that wasn't done in the community at the time. And I felt like, or it really wasn't, and it still really isn't. So I felt like this is a market that I could really kind of target and really try to build my channel on. And it's done well recently. And I think it'll do a lot better once the game goes to Xbox, which it's supposed to this year. Yeah. So it's just one of those markets that I felt like it was pretty open, and I was able to kind of target it and build off that.
Is the game moving to PC, or was that just a rumor?
I don't know 100%. I think it was supposed to like go to Switch as well. Wow. And so like, I don't think it's like 100% confirmed, but I think because of like the whole like Microsoft Xbox, you could technically play it on PC. Yeah. But I'm not 100% sure on that.
So do you ever see yourself transitioning into like the FIFA world to do something similar with soccer? Or do you kind of just want to hone in on that?
So when I originally did FIFA, so the big thing with how FIFA and soccer is, a lot of the viewers are European. And the way that YouTube works are a lot of ads are targeted for where those people are watching it. Yeah. So ads in Europe pay a lot less than what the ads do in America. So when I initially did FIFA, say I had a video that would, compared to what my Rangers video just did, I'd probably make about a third on a FIFA video than what I normally would. Wow. So just because European ads just don't pay that well. So as much as I would love to like go into the soccer world, I just know I'm not going to make as much money. And FIFA and soccer, that market is so saturated at this point, where you have to have something that's original, or you just have to have that personality where people are just going to jump to it, or you kind of have to have people that'll like build you up to, you know, be noticeable and be recognized. So as much as I would like to, I just think it would just kind of take away from what I'm building right now. And so I feel like I should probably just continue with this.
That makes sense.
Are there, I don't know, again, not a gamer here. Are there any games for MLS?
Yeah, so it's FIFA. They have like
It's
licenses for like the German leagues, the MLS, English, French, like most leagues they have licenses. They do lose them from time to time, but there's like FIFA, there's PES, which is Pro Evolution Soccer, which is like their main competitor. It's just really all dependent on who has the licenses for certain leagues and teams.
Yeah, I know that that's MLS is gaining popularity pretty quickly. That might be a little niche to try to target. But what do I know? What do you have any plans on any creative different ideas that you want to do somewhere down the line?
Yeah, so obviously I've like been focused on like gaming and like MLB The Show. I definitely like talking about real life baseball, and that's I feel like something that a lot of people just assume about me because I play this baseball video game that's like where my knowledge ends. Yeah. But like I'm really deep into baseball at this point where like I know what the players are doing, or, you know, kind of who's doing well, who's doing poorly. You look at, you know, the pipeline for the minors and the prospects. Like I'm looking at who could be the next big thing coming up. So like I'm actually like I don't want to say like I'm really up there with the knowledge on the game, but I'm keeping up to date with it. And I feel like a lot of people just assume all my knowledge comes from a video game. So I would like to be able to like start breaking off and doing like MLB news type stuff. And I know there's other people that do that kind of content as well. But and I've done a couple videos like that and they do well. It's just my audience is more focused on video games. So it might be something where I just kind of have to continue to push it on my channel or possibly start a second channel. But really, I just haven't really kept any doors closed. I'm really open to seeing where this kind of content creation takes me. I'm not really just going to be like, well, this is what I've built. Let me just continue to go in this direction. I'm definitely looking to see what other avenues of, you know, what other avenues YouTube has open for me, or possibly, you know, if there's another job opening somewhere else, who knows what happens. Yeah.
I've seen you have videos like I saw like you had an RBI baseball video. I never played RBI baseball. Every time I see the commercial, well, I think I've played it recently. Every time I see the commercial, it looks kind of
talking about the old RBI baseball, like from the Nintendo.
It's like the same thing, but like it's back in the day it was a lot better than what it is now.
Okay.
It's like,
my question is it as bad as it looks on the commercials? Because
it's more of like that like old school like retro baseball game.
Yeah,
like that's what you should go into it with, that approach, rather than like this is going to be super realistic, kind of like MLB The Show is trying to target. So
yeah, MLB The Show's super. You get to give them credit; they're super realistic. I mean, I have my beef with that game sometimes. I feel like
everybody does. Everybody.
I feel like they've been using the same blueprint since the David Ortiz game. Like the way they high five down the third baseline or something is like that's David Ortiz doing that high five.
There's a lot of people that have
there's that
a lot
other
to say
baseball
about
game.
it.
There's that other baseball game too, though. I actually bought it, but I only played it like twice. I forget what it's called, but it has nothing to do with MLB.
MVP. Well, this is from my back in MVP
baseball was legit. They stopped making that. I'm talking about
Super Mega Baseball.
Super Mega Baseball, yeah.
Yeah, that's like a really arcade game. I've played it a few times.
It was pretty fun.
It's fun to just like mess around with, but like again, it's not like something where you can get too attached unless you're like really into like, oh, this player, I created him and like I'm gonna run with that. It's like you kind of have to come up with your own storylines behind it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question and it's escaping me. Okay. I'll ask you, since I see a wedding ring on your finger, I'm going to ask you, how do you get away with doing this while married?
So that was the weird thing. Cause so I met my wife when I was in college and I was a junior, and I went to go visit one of my friends, and he was like, I got this girl I want you to meet. And I was like, all right, whatever, you know? And so I ended up like hitting it off, and like everything went well. And then we were like long distance for about 2 years. And then I moved to where she lived once I graduated. And I kind of like was starting YouTube when we first dated, kind of getting my feet wet to like get to the point where I could start my channel, like get back to being comfortable with it. And it was actually my roommate at the time who like told her, he was like, hey, you know, he does YouTube. And I was like, well, what the hell? Like, let me bring that up. And now, and she was okay with it like right away, which I thought was like, oh, okay, perfect. And so like, I kind of just got really lucky that she was okay with it. At the time, I still thought I was going to end up being a teacher. I wasn't sure where YouTube was going to take me. And so I told her, you know, I'm not going to go full-time YouTube until I know it's something that I can really do and make enough money to like support everything. And so when I was able to like actually, you know, focus on YouTube, I told her like, hey, I'm making as much money as I was teaching. And I think that says more about the teaching profession than what I'm doing. But I told her, I was like, hey, I'm making enough. I think it's time for me to like take this full time and be serious about it. And she was 100% supportive. I think it's more of, she knows that I'm taking this seriously. I'm taking the time to like make this a profession, and it allows me to like be at home. We have 2 dogs, so I can take care of them. And like, she's a nurse. So she works almost every day, and she's gone for like 12 hours a day. Mm-hmm. So for me to like be home, and I think thinking more in the future, it's more of like, I can be home if we have a family, then I can like help with the kids or whatever it is down the line. And then that way, you know, she's at work. And I mean, it does help that like, you know, she makes quite a bit of money doing what she's doing. So I got kind of lucky, just how it is. So I think in the end, I just got lucky. That's really what it is, that she was super supportive of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
My wife is a physician, so I'm kind of in the same boat. Mm-hmm. I get to pursue my dreams while she busts her ass during a pandemic.
Yeah. And this was like her first year where she just started a new job. She's like a nurse practitioner. So she just started a new job, and she was like, this is the craziest way I could have started doing this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Crazy. All right. And then what are there have to be some perks to doing this gaming stuff. Like, tell us the truth. Do you get some free games out of it or anything like that?
Yeah. Every once in a while, or certain companies will like come in and be like, hey, you know, we have this game. Do you want to try it out? Or like last year I worked with LG, and they were trying to promote their new, like their phone where you could like flip it open, like dual screen. So they sent me a phone. I still haven't used it. It's still in the box somewhere, but like they sent me this phone, and they're like, you can keep it. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, there's like free games. Last couple years ago, we were able to like, me and a couple friends flew out to like spring training. We got to talk to some of the players. But I think the big thing for me is like, I get to work from home, and I know a lot of people don't get that luxury. So I think that's the big thing, and I'm pretty flexible with what I can do. Like if I don't want to work, I don't have to work. I won't make money that day, but at least I don't have to like force out a video. If I want to take a vacation, I can take a vacation. And I think that's like the biggest thing that I enjoy about this, is that I really kind of work on my own schedule, on my own time, and just kind of my own boss. I think that's like the biggest thing for me. But yeah, there's definitely like free games, or like working with sponsors and things like that. Like working with MLB from time to time, they'll send me a jersey, but like it's cool. So, but that's awesome. Yeah.
So I was also a teacher before doing all of this in New York City middle school. Tell us about teach. Did you ever teach?
I taught for, yeah. So I had the whole student teaching, and then when I went to school at University of Dayton in Ohio. And then when I moved to Kentucky. So I didn't have my license to teach in the state of Kentucky. And so I had to go through that whole process. So that took close to a year just because I was kind of lazy with it. So when I first moved, I was doing like, I did kindergarten and I did kindergarten. And then in my free time, I did tutoring. And then after that, I did that for about a year. And then the next year I did second grade. And so when I did my student teaching, I did second grade. And then I also had high school. So I did kind of time in both. Wow. And so I kind of had like both spectrums, and I loved both of them. I got to like really experience, like in Dayton, there's a huge, like Southern Ohio has a huge like heroin problem. And so like you can kind of see like it's not the best area like outside of the campus. So I got to see, I was working with kids who were, you know, broken homes, broken families. And it was just, you could just really see that even though they were dealing with these tough situations, they were really happy to be at school. They were really happy to learn. And then it was kind of the same thing with high school, where in high school, it's like, there are some kids who have kind of given up at that point, but there's also at the same time, those kids who want to get to the next step in life. And I think that was like the one thing that really drew me to teaching, was no matter what, you can really be that next, that positive influence. And that's what I really enjoyed about it. So I actually got to teach like second grade, like by myself in my own classroom for a year. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I definitely would go back if, you know, at one point I'm like, I'm done with YouTube. I really like it. It's just a great job. Yeah. So
cool. So what is, aside from rebuilds, do you have any plans for the channel moving forward?
Man, I think it's just more just being like a baseball channel rather than just MLB The Show channel. I think that's one thing I want to try to explore a little bit more. Like I said, and kind of mentioned already, because it's great to be able to like play games, make a living off that. But I don't want to be tied down to just a video game, because if that video game is bad, people aren't going to watch it because people don't enjoy that video game. And so that way I can like at least talk about baseball. I can talk about what's going on. I can talk about, someone broke this record or someone had this career day, and I can still make a video on something that happened like that, rather than just being like, well, let's rebuild another team, even though no one plays this game because it's terrible. I don't want to be tied down to something that like I really can't control. It's kind of like how like the whole pandemic happened. Like I couldn't control, baseball getting postponed. And that was like, what am I going to do now? Like no one's really talking about baseball. So like the whole searches for baseball were down, some people were playing video games, but even for me, it was like, this is a downtime. So like, I just don't want to completely be tied down to something that if it's bad, I don't want to be like just completely out of luck. So.
Yeah. So sorry, Luis, you have a question?
No, I was just like thinking about when the pandemic hit, like how down baseball was, and we were that whole period, there was really nothing going on.
Yeah. Whoa. So for YouTube, when the pandemic hit, it was like revenue immediately like took a hit because no one wanted to advertise. Like companies didn't want to advertise. And I remember looking at my revenue, I was like, wow, I'm down like 60% for the next who knows how long. And so that was bad. Like I was getting ads from like countries I didn't even know existed. And I was like, wow, this is how like companies really aren't advertising at this point. And that's when I knew I was like, I got to be able to have that backup plan. I don't want to be tied to something where like something like this ever happens again, that I'm just completely out of luck. I don't really know what to do. So that was something where I was like, I really got to keep doors open. I got to see what else is out there just in case something like this happens again.
Yeah. And not only was it bad for business, it was bad press all around because it was owners and players fighting over money. So people were really down on baseball at the time. Yeah. Everything was really negative. But I wanted to ask you, since most of these involve simulations, these rebuilds, what made you choose MLB The Show over something like, Outside the Park or some other program like that?
So like Outside the Park kind of has like a really small market. And like people always tell me, go do Outside the Park. You have more control over your simulations. You have more control. You can do like historical rebuilds. You can really get more in depth on your contracts and your trades and stuff like that. And as much as I would love to be able to deep dive into something like that, one, you got to at least have a video where you can keep your attention, or the audience attention. So if you have a video that's like breaking down the contract of Giancarlo Stanton for the next 10 years, who knows how long that's going to take for you to explain. And I know some of my videos get, an hour or 2 hours long, but most of the time I'm trying to stay within that 30-minute range, because I feel like once you start going off into the hour range, you start to lose people more and more. So this way I can at least have somewhat of a quick simulation. I still have somewhat of that attention. And if I get too detailed and too in depth, I either have to start cutting things out, and I'm not too sure if I'm going to cut out something that people want to watch, or I'm just going to have to move through it so fast that I'm going to sound like an auctioneer, where I'm like, this has happened here and this happened here and this happened here. And it's, again, you're just going to start losing people's attention. So I would like to be more in depth. I would like to have that kind of simulation where I can actually have more control and everything, but I can only go too in depth on certain things without it being too much.
What goes into, like, tell us about the behind the scenes behind your videos. Like, a lot of people seem to think, like when I talk to my wife about what Luis and I are doing, she almost writes it off as you're recording a podcast. Just go talk on the microphone, record it on your camera. And boom, that's it. It's done. I'm like, no, there's a lot more that goes into it,
So I think,
what's your process?
So like off season, I'm trying to see what's topical at the time. And then I'm like, okay, so Cardinals just signed Arenado. Let's throw Arenado on the Cardinals. Let's see what the roster looks like. What positions are weak? Where do I need to target to improve that? And, now I got to look at the salary. How much salary do they have to play with? Who do I need to get rid of because their contract's horrible, like Matt Carpenter, like players like that. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like my whole like thinking process behind it. I really don't think about it too much going into it, just because I know I'm going to have downtime while I'm like in between seasons, or I'm simming the season. A lot of it's mostly on the fly at this point. I'll be like, all right, I'm going to trade Matt Carpenter. Let me throw in a prospect and let me see what player I can get. And I'm like, this name popped up. Let me try to trade for him immediately. I think when something isn't topical, that's where I have to think about things a little bit more. What different types of videos I can come up with. So it'll be like, well, what if I throw, the top 100 prospects on a team? How quickly will it take for them to win a World Series? Something like that. I think that's where I'm kind of brainstorming behind the scenes. But yeah, right now it's just a lot of it is on the fly. And I think a lot of the behind the scenes stuff is more just making sure everything is working. Is my camera right? Is my lighting okay? Is my microphone actually working? Making sure I didn't mute myself, or am I actually recording? Because there's been so many times where I'm like, oh, I'm definitely recording. I'll get through the whole session. I look back, it's been 3 hours. I have nothing recorded. I didn't hit play. God. So, or I'll accidentally mute my mic, and then I got the video, but there's no audio. So I think a lot of it's just making sure everything's good to go. And I think a lot of the behind the scenes is just making sure that stuff's good. And then also a lot of it is making sure you have the right energy, making sure that, you're going into it. You're not like really having a bad day. Cause there's been some days where I'll just force out a video and I'm looking back at it, I'm editing it, and I can realize like my energy's not there. You can tell I'm just kind of like forcing it and just providing the right energy. And it's the same thing with like streaming. A lot of people don't realize that like interacting with people who are watching you live, it takes a lot of energy. People are asking you questions. You're focusing on what you're doing. You're answering their questions. You're talking to them. And it takes a lot to like interact and continuously do it. So for me to sit down and record or stream for 2, 3, 4 hours continuously, it takes a lot of just staying focused. It takes just a lot mentally, takes some energy out of you, and you just got to stay focused and make sure that you're actually sitting there and getting it done. So,
so do you still play other parts of the game just for fun, or does everything you do on MLB go on to YouTube? Like, do you mess around with the Diamond Dynasty, Road to the Show?
So,
but you do that for like your own pleasure, or do you try to do that for them?
So I'll do like rebuilds for YouTube, and then like I'll like stream Diamond Dynasty, because then I can just kind of like do whatever I want, and just then I can interact with people. Because a lot of people will be like, put Diamond Dynasty on your channel. And I'm like, if I'm doing everything that's MLB related and MLB The Show related and throwing it on my channel, then I don't really have time to sit back and enjoy the game for myself. Everything that I'm doing is for content purposes. Everything is work. So that way I can like sit back, play Diamond Dynasty, or every once in a while I'll like make a franchise and I'll just kind of mess around with it and have some fun with it. Like I'll take the Cubs because the Cubs are my favorite team, and I'll be like, all right, let me see what I can do with the team, because obviously I disagree with some of the moves that are happening now. And I'll be like, well, let me see what I can do with them. Or I'll play other games. I think most of the time, if I'm playing games, it's something besides MLB, just because a lot of the time that I spend is MLB The Show related. So,
So I'm really interested in a couple of things that you said, because our channel has been around for a while, but it's pretty new. Like we started uploading content to our channel on YouTube. What would you say, Luis? Like
last year,
maybe over the last year. And I think we weren't consistent. We're starting to become more consistent now. And on the podcast side, on the audio side, it does a lot better than it does on the YouTube side. But we're gonna get there eventually. But you kept mentioning topical and searches. Like there's clearly a process there that you go through. How do you decide what is topical right now? Are you looking at like Google algorithms or Google trends? Are you looking at Twitter? How do you decide this?
So just kind of staying in like the MLB world, I'm always just seeing like who just signed. So like Trevor Bauer, once he signed, I was like, I know I have to get a video out because people are going to want to see something on that. And normally the quicker you can get it out, the better, because then you're automatically going to be, that video is already out there. The longer you wait, less people are going to search about it, because, they've already watched a video about someone talking about their contract or how it affects the team or things like that. So normally the quicker you can get that video out talking about whatever just happened in the news, the better. You're going to be in the searches a lot quicker before it starts getting flooded with everybody else who wants to talk about that topic. But yeah, it's really just things that happened that day. That's kind of how I do it. Like with the Rangers, they just traded, kind of their franchise player for the last, 10 plus years, and Elvis Andrews. I was like, well, that's kind of big for the Rangers to do something like that. Probably should make a video on them. Arenado, the Cardinals, I got that one out pretty quickly. And it's just kind of things like that. Normally you kind of want to get them out quicker. I mean, there is ways that you can like find who's trending and whatnot. But for me, it's just, let me try to get it out as quick as possible, as like once that news breaks.
Yeah. And then the one thing, because I wrote for Call to the Pen, which is huge on SEO for a while. And so the stories kind of suffered because you're focusing on what's trending and whatever, instead of what's relevant and interesting at the same time. And because the site was pretty big, it was always on top of searches. Yeah. But when you're a big channel, but there are channels out there with like, hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of followers.
Yeah.
How do you compete with guys like that?
I think so. For me, I got kind of lucky because there really isn't many people who do videos like I do. And I think that's kind of something that has helped me help me stay kind of at the top of like searches. Because if you search like MLB The Show Rebuild, there's only like me and one other guy that do content like me. But if you look at like other people who do like MLB news type stuff, there's multiple channels. There's like Draft Neck Mark, there's Fuzzy, you've got Foolish Baseball, you've got plenty of people who are doing content like that. You've got John Boy, like people who are doing that kind of stuff. So to kind of compete with those people, I think one, it's your personality, how you present yourself at the camera. And there's just a lot of things that like go into YouTube. And like some things you can't control, like your voice. It's one of those things that if people don't like your voice, they're not going to listen to you. If people don't like your energy or the way you present yourself, they're not going to watch you. So those things do kind of have an effect on it. But I think it's just, you got to be original. You got to have good energy. You got to have good quality content. I mean, there's a lot of things, but I think it's just, I got lucky that there's just not a lot of people doing what I'm doing. But if we're talking about, like I said, the people who are doing stuff like baseball news, things like just being really quick on the videos, kind of being the first one out with it. You got to have a good title. There's like a lot of stuff that people don't know about YouTube. Cause like if you search something on YouTube, certain people have titles where after a while it cuts off and you have the ellipses where it's ... You really want to try to keep it within that frame where you see kind of the main points of what the video is about. Before it gets cut off. So that's one of the big things that you want to try to do, where if your title kind of stays within that range and people can read, okay, this is a Los Angeles Angels rebuild. Boom, they can see that. The thumbnail, this kind of like your book cover. They always say don't judge a book by its cover, but you kind of do. And this is just a bunch of others, like the tags. Those are kind of more for searches. When you upload the video, you throw the tags in of, it's kind of like when food, how in food, the ingredients, the top 3 ones are like the ones that have the most in that food. It's kind of the same thing. The top, your first few tags are the ones that are like the most important to put in there. So there's a bunch of stuff that like is, you kind of need to look out for uploading a video and making sure that it's something that people want to watch. So like the main things are just title and thumbnail. You want to make sure that like your first impression is going to catch their eye immediately.
Cool. And then the last question, because this is something I struggle with. And I feel like Luis, maybe you struggle with it too, but once the camera turns on, like we could have an awesome conversation prior to turning on the camera. And when the camera turns on, we're almost different people. And you were talking about energy and stuff like that. Like any advice on that?
I think it's the more you do it, you just get comfortable with it. I remember the first time I like turned on the camera and I looked at myself and I was like, oh man, what am I doing? And it's weird because like even I remember my wedding day and I went up there and they're like, hey, give a speech. And I remember I got up there and I'm looking at these people and I'm like, and I'm like, I look into a camera and I know people are watching me and I do this almost every day, but I stand in front of people and I'm trying to give a speech at my wedding and I just froze. And I was like, thank you guys for showing up. I hope you had a great time. But for me to be in a camera and know that a bunch of people are going to watch me, and I think it's a little bit easier for me with the camera because I know I can like edit out the mistakes that I have. But sometimes I'll leave them in just so people know that I'm not like a robot or anything. And there is a side of me where I stutter or I'll mess up and I say the wrong word. But I think the big thing was just me doing it more and more and more. And even if I did mess up, just keep pushing through it and just trying to make sure that I wasn't a robot. I think that was the big thing because I'd watch videos back and I'd just sound really monotone and boring. And but I think it's the more you do it, the more you just get comfortable with it. And that was a big thing for me.
Do you have a monitor watching yourself while you record, or do you try to avoid it?
So like I'll have the program pulled up on the side and it'll show the camera, and it's mostly to make sure that everything's good to go. So like I'll watch to make sure that like something didn't mess up or anything like that. But when I'm editing it back, I'll definitely make sure that like I'll listen to everything that I said, or I'll cut out certain areas that I messed up, or I'll definitely see what facial expressions or anything that I make. But I think the big thing is me editing it back. That's when I realize the things that I did or I didn't do and I should have done, or things that I didn't say that I should have said. So that's kind of the time where I can like really look back and be like, man, I missed, maybe I should have made a joke here, or I realized that I was stuttering a lot, or I said a lot, and I need to kind of find different ways to fill that dead space. Or I can cut it out, but sometimes then it looks a little choppy where it's just like frame by frame and a lot of cuts. So I try to avoid those and try to keep things flowing. So that's kind of the big thing. I almost kind of make it like I'm doing like a conversation where I'm just kind of talking to the camera.
Yeah.
But also trying to keep things moving where I'm not just rambling on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, all right, guys, check out Antonio Ortiz's channel on YouTube, TheAntOrtiz. You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram. It's the same handle, right?
Yep.
TheAntOrtiz. Thank you so much, Antonio, for coming on and talking to us. I'm interested in this world of esports, and you've enlightened us a lot.
Appreciate you having me on. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thanks,
all right, man. All right, thanks. Peace.
Yeah.
Take care.